That's the big breaking news coming in. Adultery law practically struck down now and in fact this is now declared unconstitutional. Earlier we heard the observations that were being made by the CJI, where the CJI and Justice KHANWILKAR said that adultery may not be a cause to an unhappy marriage but the result of an unhappy marriage. Mere adultery cannot be a crime, said the CJI and Justice KHANWILKAR of the Constitution bench. In fact, in some other observations that were made by the two judges and now of course concurred by Justice NARIMAN as well, that adultery is unconstitutional, it cannot qualify as a criminal offence. And earlier as well, a big pronouncements being made by the CJI himself, where he said that the husband is not the lord and master of the wife. At the same time, he really made it absolutely clear that the system treating women with indignity invites the wrath of law. These are observations, viewers, that we are quoting from the Chief Justice of India. He has written the judgment himself along with Justice KHANWILKAR. The CJI says the husband is not the master of the wife, and these are the observations coming in thick and fast on the adultery law. But the big point here is that the adultery law has now been struck down. Viren, over to you for more details.
Isn't it, Afrida? We're watching history being made. The Supreme Court striking down Section 497 of the IPC. That means that adultery is now it's been declared unconstitutional, like we were telling our viewers. Just because there's different judgments doesn't necessarily mean that they differ on the larger point here, which is that that Section 497 must go. And Justice NARIMAN has concurred with the Chief Justice Deepak Mishra as well as Justice KHANWILKAR, as we've seen just in the last few minutes.
Okay, I'm interrupting you here, Viren, because Meenakshi is live with us. Meenakshi, big breaking news. Adultery law has been struck down. Section 497 of IPC unconstitutional now.
Well, absolutely, Afrida, this is huge, big breaking news coming in from Supreme Court, and the notings have been completely epic. We've heard from Honorable Chief Justice of India making a detailed noting of the reasonings that he was arriving at, and he has written for himself and his brother judge, Justice KHANWILKAR, and they have gone on to cite some very amazing observations where they talk about how husband is not the master of a woman, mere adultery can't be a crime, and adultery may not be a cause to an unhappy marriage but a result of an unhappy marriage. This is also one of the observations in this detailed judgment where the CBI, the Honorable Chief Justice of India, has read his part and Justice KHANWILKAR's part. But the big breaking news coming in because after reading both their respective parts, they agreed that 497 IPC is unconstitutional, and immediately afterwards we heard from Honorable Justice Rohinton Nariman, who also went on to say that he is in agreement with the findings of Honorable Chief Justice of India and Justice KHANWILKAR. So this makes it 3 out of the 5 judge composition agreeing that 497 IPC is something which should be struck off as unconstitutional on multiple grounds.
Right.
But the primary grounds, Afrida, that the judges have found so unpalatable has been the fact that they find it exceedingly disrespectful towards a woman. This aspect of the law in its current form, which existed, which said that the offence of adultery can be mitigated, can be compounded if a woman engages in a relationship outside of her marriage with the consent and connivance of her husband, goes on to take away from the dignity of a woman, making her subservient to her husband, making the husband the master of a woman, making the woman a property or chattel of the husband. That is the area of deep discomfiture today that has been dealt with by Honorable Chief Justice of India, and he has gone on to quote this Sanskrit shloka, Afrida, in the judgment, which says that wherever women are respected, there gods reside. And he also goes on to say as to how progressive jurisprudence should accord women their dignity, and he also went on to speak about how the system treating women with indignity in invites the wrath of constitution, and the civility of a civilization depends on dignity of a woman. These have been the noteworthy observations made by the Honorable Chief Justice of India, who has written for himself Justice KHANWILKAR, and these views have been agreed to by Honorable Justice NARIMAN, and therefore 497 IPC, adultery as a criminal offence, ceases to exist in India in the present date and time. Afrida.
So it is no longer a criminal offence, no longer a punishable offence in the country, but the observations, like you said, addresses certain very strong social biases. So those observations must be looked into. But once again, Meenakshi, why this is significant is that it upholds the dignity and equality of women, like some of the previous judgments that we have seen. Meenakshi, I wanted you to throw some more light on the fact that it has addressed the issue of adultery law in its previous form being discriminatory, and how it has upheld the dignity and equality of men and women as citizens in this country.
Well, absolutely. And Frida, you know, this is the critical observations or the notings that we are bringing to our viewers as the judgment will be made available. The further reasonings that all the judges have taken to arrive at their conclusions will be made available. Justice NARIMAN was in the middle of his pronouncements. We had to rush out as soon as we arrived at the majority view. After Justice NARIMAN, Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud is slated to read his portion of the judgment out. So there are 4 authors to this judgment in the 5-judge constitution bench, and all of them prima facie seem to agree that the relationship between a man or a woman in a marriage is something which deteriorates perhaps long before anybody chooses to enter into an adulterous relationship. And therefore they go on to make this observation as to how adultery is something which is not necessarily the cause of an unhappy marriage. Sometimes it's also the result of an unhappy marriage. This we had seen Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud dwell on when the matter was being argued in the Supreme Court. And not just that, Afrida, but the voluminous dedication that Honorable Chief Justice of India has made towards according respect to a woman is something I think that has weighed on his conscience, because this current provision of law as it existed really took away from dignity and self-respect of a woman, because it had this particular clause embedded in it that a woman can enter into a relationship outside of a marriage with the consent and connivance of her husband, and then it would not be referred to as an offence. That is a part the judges have really frowned upon, and this is a departure from what the government of India was arguing in the Supreme Court. The government wanted this provision to be retained because again the government had said that this is a provision, if not retained, would strike at the sanctity of marriage. Clearly the Supreme Court majority view is not in agreement with this point of view.